Hello everyone, welcome back to another lecture on the course Python Fundamentals Building Blocks for Aspiring Developers. We will continue with the fourth module that is about functions. So according to our agenda, we are at the 14th day. Here we will see about arguments in functions and returning values. So let's begin. So function arguments or functional arguments. So these basically provide necessary data to the function to complete a particular task. It is specified in the function definition. Data is sent and it is written in the parentheses when calling the function. So and there are different types of functional arguments, positional arguments, keyword arguments, and there is also default values that we will have a look. There are there are a couple more functional arguments, but that become too advanced. So we will not have a look at them in this lecture because those are not important and these are the ones that are mostly used. So first we need to learn this and then we can move on to that one. So if you look at the right side, this seems pretty similar as to the one that we did in the previous lecture. So we have a define, greet is the function name, then we have parentheses. Now in the parentheses, we have something called name, that is a variable. Now when I can use this name variable in the function body now. So this is like I'm passing some data to the function so it can perform some task on that data. So this is the purpose of arguments. So first example is the positional arguments. So positional arguments, these are passed in a specific order. So here let's understand the difference between two keywords, parameter and argument. In the previous lecture, I talked about this difference for just a moment, but now let's see it visually. So whatever I write here, name and age, these are called the parameters of the function. Now when I call the function and provide values for these are called arguments. Both terms are mostly used interchangeably, like when people say what is the argument, they could also mean this, but the correct terminology is that these are the parameters and these are the arguments. So let's see. So positional arguments are or positional parameters. They are passed. Positional arguments are passed in a specific order. Order matters the most. If we do not use the correct order, the function might not work correctly. In fact, it will not work correctly. And function interprets them in the same order. So let's say I have a function called greet. It has two parameters. It takes two arguments, name and age. And what the function does is that it prints hello, name, and then it says you are age years old. So you are this much years old, and so on. So when I call the function, I say, okay, I have two arguments. For name, I want to say Alice. For age, I want to say 30. So now when I call this Alice becomes this. So whatever the variable here is, let's say name here, will hold the value whatever is passed here. So name variable will now hold the value Alice, and this age variable will now hold the value 30. Now if I switch the order, now if I put 30 and then Alice, it will still be the same. Name will be now having the value of 30 because it does not understand the logic or semantic of how we are passing the arguments. It will say, okay, in the first position is this one. The second position parameter will have the argument. The second argument, if there are more, the third one will have the third, and so on. So whenever we are using positional arguments, we have to be aware of this. Now keyword arguments, so these are passed based on the parameter names. They can be specified in any order, but just the parameter names need to be correct. So if we look at the same example, but this time around, instead of just writing the values like 30 and Alice, I'm also writing this age and name over here. So what I'm saying is that for age, give the value of 30. It doesn't matter if I put this over here or I put this in the start. It will say, okay, age variable or age parameter will have a value of 30. Now it is important that this um, this name and this name, even the case, uppercase or lowercase, needs to be the same. It says, okay, age. Now I say age is equals to 30. It says name here, so I will say name is equals to 30. I cannot say first name and then I expect that the function should say, okay, if someone is writing here first name, that means he's writing name. No, that is not correct. You need to keep the same name, but you can change the order. Now we have default values. So these are specified in the function definition. Default values used if the value is not provided for that particular parameter. When a value is provided, it is overwritten and function interprets them in the same order. So let's say I have this function, but instead of just writing name, I say age is equals to 19. So what it is doing is that it is giving it a default value. So it says that whenever the function will start, it will automatically say age is 19. This has become a default value. Now when I call the function and I do not give a value of age, it will execute because it already has a default value. So I can just skip this one too. But let's say for another case, I want to give it an age. So this time I can just specify the age. I can just say 22 and it will override this 19, override this default value, and the new value will be 22. So these are how we use default values. Now let's have a look at the return values. So I've been using this word quite a lot, and let's see what it means in context of functions. So functions can return or send back some values. We use the return keyword to return these values. Return keyword, it also basically terminates the function wherever this keyword is used. And we can store the returned value in a variable. We have to store the return value in a variable. So here you can see I'm saying return a plus b. So in the previous one, what I was doing is that I was just printing the value. I say, okay, print this value, that's it, function's job is finished. But here I'm saying that return the value. So it will not print anything, it will return this answer over here. So when I call the function, this part will return this thing and it will store that in this variable. Now I can use that. So we will see more about this in the code. So let's start coding. So let's open up Visual Studio Code, remove the previous code. So let's begin. Let's say I have a function called create, and here I say name and do this, and I say print name, and if I run the code, nothing is there. Oops. So nothing is here, you see. I just cleared this. So nothing is here. So because I haven't actually called the function. Now if I do this create and I put in a name here. So let's say first name is equals to John, and I say first name and I print it. So now it prints John. So when I call the function, I pass it a value, an argument, and this argument goes over here, and now the function can use this one. If I do not specify it over here, let's say like this, let's do it like this, it will not work because the arguments that we pass need to be equal to the parameters that we have defined in the function. Okay. So if I haven't defined anything here as a parameter, I cannot pass an argument. Now it is also that we need to pass the same amount of arguments as is the number of parameters. So let's say name, age, score, and final thing, let's say love Python. So let's say I have this and I want to print hello, and I'm just using concatenation, name, welcome to my code, and then I say print, you are age plus years old, then I say use code this much marks, and you, and in fact let's put a if statement in here, kind of make it more complex. If love Python is equals to true, print you love Python, and let's put a smiley over here, and if not we say print you do not love Python. Why don't you love Python? So now let's say we have this over here. Okay, so what this function is doing is that it is taking some values. This is a string. This age and score can be integers or floating numbers, and this love Python variable is basically a boolean. It will have true or false values. Now the function here does not know the data type. It will be based on whatever we send over here. Okay, so let's say I can also write the values over here. Instead of us defining a variable and then writing the variable name, I can simply write the values over here. So let's say name is John, and age of John is, let's say, 21, and instead of this let me just write it, because first name is equals to John, age of John is equals to 21, and then we say score of John is equals to 10 point it's 9.5 out of 10, and Python love is equals to 2. John loves Python. So we do this. So now we switch it over here. We say first name, then we say age of John, then we say score of John, and then we say does John love Python or not. So now if I execute the code, okay, cannot concatenate this, so it says it cannot concatenate an integer with a string. So let me just convert this into a string, right? Okay, everything should be fine now. So it says, hello John. Let's put a space over here. Let's clear this and now run the code again. So it says, hello John, welcome to my code. So name is from here, that is John. Then it says you are 21 years old. So you are age, whatever the values in this age, it will get it from here, and this one will get it from here, that is 21. And now you scored 9.5 marks. Similarly, score will get value from here, will get value from here, then this one will get a value from this, and that is from here. So this is how positional arguments are used. Now if I switched it over here, so instead of age I say score and I say age. Now I switched it. Here it says age, but instead of on this position here I am passing the score. So what it will do? Oops. So it says hello John, you are this, first line is correct. Now it says you are 9.5 years old. because this age now has this value and this one at the second position has this value. So this value is not the age, this value is the score. So you see, whatever we have defined in the function, we have to keep the order according to that. Otherwise, everything will be messed up. Now let's say instead of putting age of John over here, I put it at the end and put this one here over here and do this. So now first name is name, age becomes this is obviously not the same, then the score is also not correct, and this is also not correct. Now if I execute the code, I should get an error. Now I do not get an error because I have put an else statement. If I do elif python is equals to false and then do this one. So use code 2 marks. Hello, welcome to my code. You are this much. Use code 2 marks. So this code is not being executed because since this is not a boolean variable, it cannot compare it. It cannot say it is true or it is false. It cannot compare it. So it does not output any of these. So you see how changing the order will mess up the function and will not perform as we want it to perform. Now let me just correct this real quick like this. Everything is correct. Yes, everything is correct. Now if I just remove this one over from here, I just passed it 3 arguments instead of 4. You see now it gives me an error. Okay, do not have this value of this argument. You have only passed 3 arguments, but I have 4 parameters, so that is not correct. So you see how we need to pass the same number of arguments as the number of parameters. So let me just keep this line over here like this, and let's just say I have this name, age, score, and love Python. So now I want to call it in a different way. So what I can do is I can say name is equals to John, then I say age is equals to 21, then I say score is equals to 9.5, then I say love Python is equals to true. I run the code, everything is correct. Now here, instead of relying on the order, I'm actually using these parameter names in my arguments. So I say the value of this parameter is this name, the value of this parameter age is this, the value of this parameter is this. Now even if I mess up or change the order like this, I change the order like this and I run the code, it still has the same output. You see, it doesn't matter, but it does matter if I just remove it and I do this, then I will get an error because again it has 4 parameters. I'm just passing 3 arguments. That is not so correct. So you see how we can use this and this according to our use case. I can also do this, and for now let's say I want to give it a default value. So I say default value is this. So now I already have a default value, and now if I pass only 3 variables, what it should do? It should run the code. Yes, I love Python. This is the default value here. If I do not provide any value for this parameter, it will already have a default value. It will execute according to that. But if I provide a value here, so I'm just writing false instead of writing this, so it should now do not love Python. It now has a value it now has a value false, so this value is overwritten, and now it executes the same way. Similarly, we can also do for this one. If I remove this love Python like this and do this, run the code again, it says you love Python, it has a default value. Now if I do this, just let me add it over here and I say equals to false, run the code. So now it says you do not love Python, right? This is how we can use default values. Now all of these variables do not have default values. If I just remove this one like this, it should give me an error. See, it should give me an error. So you need to define some default values based on the use case. It is not always good to define a default value. For example, I always want a value for name. I cannot have a default value. So I cannot give it a default value. Similarly for age and score too. But I can give a default value for Python, this variable, so I can give it, so I will give it. So this is how it is used. Now let's do this. Yes, let's change the function altogether and look at the return statement. So let's say I want to add two values, or instead I want to perform an operation. Let's say x is equals to this, y is equals to this, and my result is what? X squared plus y cube plus, let's say, x divided by y, then plus, let's say, x multiplied by 10, then let's say plus 45 plus 32, 23 plus 10.4, and so on. So let's say this is the equation. So now if I want to use the equation again and again, I will have to do this. So I will just put that into a function. I do this and I do this. Now I am only using two variables, so I will have only two arguments, x and y. I can name them anything I want. I can even name them n and c or everything, but it has to be made sure that whatever these names are should be used in the function. So let's say I do this and I do this. So now I've put that into a function. I can get rid of this one. So now whenever I want to perform this equation, I can just use this function. So let's say I say equation and I say 3 and 5. Get rid of this one. Let's see the result. So now I don't have a result because I'm not printing anything. Let's say I want to return the result instead of printing it. So I say return result. So now this value is returned. It is not printed and I can use it outside of the function. Let's say result is equals to this, and then I can do and result, run the code, and now I can get the result because this has returned the value. Now if I did not return the value, I will only say print the value, print result. I'm not able to do this because it says none, because it does not return anything, and this is actually none, and this 243.0 is printed because of this print statement. I cannot use the result of this equation outside of this function. I have no reference. So this is why we use return result to this, and now I can use it. So let's say there is another equation where I say final result is the result plus 10, and then I just want to print the final result. So this is, let's say, my code. So if I don't get this result from this function, I'm not able to add 10 to it. This is why I need to return the result or some value from this function. This is why I'm using this return statement. Run the code, everything's correct, right? Now one thing you need to understand is that whenever we have a return statement, the function will just terminate after that. If I write something after this, let's say I say result is equals to result plus 50. It doesn't matter because it has already exited over here. Now if I do this and put it over here at the end and run the code, only now it will add 50 to the result. If I put this over here, once this return is reached, it will not go on the next code within the function. It will just exit the function right away. and this is the return statement. Now if we go back to the pre-built functions in Python, the print function, whatever we write over here, hello, this is an argument, and the print function is already defined. We did not have to define the function, we did not have to create a body. There is some complex programming out there which then displays this whatever text or character is in here on our screen. Similarly, if we have this input function, whatever we write over here, enter your name, is displayed on the screen. This is a function and this is the argument of the function. So this is what functions essentially are and how we can use them and what are different features of the functions. So that was all in this lecture, and in the next lecture we will see a bit of technicalities of these, and that will make everything much more clear to you. So that will be all in this lecture. We will see you in the next one. Up till then, goodbye.